Everybody, my name is Bernie Miner. I'm your council commissioner. And I want to thank you for taking your time out this evening, joining us so that we can discuss an issue that is very important to the life and breadth of our units that are sponsored by the Catholic Church. I think most of you have probably been aware of over the last few months of the Methodist Church and the actions that they've taken. And we're now looking at the fact that the Catholic Church is going down this same road a little bit differently, but nonetheless, they are the national level made a decision and they've pushed it down to the diocese to react to it and to take the necessary action. Locally, within the Buckeye Council, well, I should say within the state of Ohio, there are 5 dioceses. 5 of those, the Steubenville, Cleveland, Columbus, and Toledo, as well as Youngstown, we have units that are encompassed by the Catholic Church. But the local parishes in the Diocese of Youngstown are the first who have been instructed not to enter into any written agreement with the local council, and that includes our charter agreements. Moving forward, they intend to continue to support Scouts through either a facility use agreements where units would be able to continue to use the church or other meeting locations that the church has, but they're no longer going to be chartering units. Now, again, currently, only the Diocese of Youngstown have put out any direction that we're aware of. So if any of you are online that are involved in Catholic churches outside of the Diocese of Youngstown and get word of anything that's brewing in your areas, please make sure that you contact council as quickly as possible. But currently, we only have units in the Youngstown diocese. In our council area, they're only in the Columbiana and Stark County area. That's the Sandy Beaver district and the Heatuck district. So I'm going to turn it over now to Nathan, and he's going to go things through so that we can get a better idea of where we need to be and what we need to do.
Okay, thanks, Bernie. I want to thank everybody for being on the meeting tonight. We are recording this meeting. For those that could not be here, we'll have this posted online, probably, if not tonight, early tomorrow. So just do know that we're recording. We are asking everybody to keep themselves muted and off camera for the main portion of the presentation for that reason. Certainly we'll have time for Q&A at the end. We've also asked you to put your unit number that you're representing in the chat, just to kind of help give us a sense. We know some of your names, but sometimes we might not be able to decipher that screen name, or maybe you're participating as this meeting got forwarded to you, just so we know who's represented. We're going to talk about this situation that's a challenging one for us. We have a little bit of experience, unfortunately, as Bernie mentioned, dealing with this same type of process, transition process, as we've called it, with our Methodist partners recently. So some of the resources we've got we could take off the shelf and package up for you. But it is a challenging situation, and it's a bit of a complex one. One of the complexities that exists, Bernie was just talking about, that the local dioceses are making the decision here, and so far only one of the 5 dioceses that we are subject to throughout our territory have made any decision. They're one of the earlier movers in the country, from what we come to understand, in terms of making a decision. We do know that the Catholic Church as a whole was considering. Everybody check their mute. Somebody's giving us a little background there. If you could, please go on mute. So we do know that the Catholic Church as a whole was considering perhaps changing how they partner with Scouting, and the National Council of the Boy Scouts worked with the USCCB, which is a United States Association of Bishops, and they developed a couple of documents that we're going to talk about a little bit later that could be used by dioceses if they chose to. The path that the Youngstown Diocese of Youngstown has selected is to do the facility use agreement model. That's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about tonight. Some of you, though, are in a different diocese, and your diocese may make a different decision. We're going to outline what those options could be as well as we go through this. So there's just some complexity here. Again, we'll have plenty of time for questions later if we need to get into that. So with that, our timeline for this, we're having this, what we call a next steps meeting happening right now this evening. Thanks for joining us. And we'll have the recording back up at the website. You can see there. As soon as possible, those affected units in the Hetuck district, our Stark County district, most of Stark County is in that district, need to decide which model that they're going to move forward with. And we'll share that here in a moment. Begin meeting with your unit committee. I'm not going to read all this for you, but to determine that course of action. The affected units in the Sandy Beaver district, Columbiana County, have already completed their recharter, and so they won't be forced into this until 2024. Again, the statement from the diocese has been not to enter into new charter agreements or renew charter agreements and to let current agreements expire. Our Hetuck friends are rechartering now, so very short timeline for this, and we're kind of under the gun to react a little bit. Before starting the recharter process, prospect, select, and secure a new charter organization. Very important to understand that your chartered organization officially has to be changed, meaning changed in the BSA system, recorded there before you begin the recharter process. And I really want to underscore that for our Hetuck friends, especially. If you begin the recharter process or worse, complete it, we're going to have issues because once you've begun it, the charter organization can't be changed. And to complete it, so we'd have to reset it. If you complete it, it's going to send an approval request to the Catholic Church, right? To the COR, to the institutional head, and they've been instructed not to sign it. And so then we're going to have to go back and start all over. So we need to make this change before you can move forward with the recharter. We'll talk about some implications of that as well. Sarah, if you can go to the next slide, please. So here's our models, okay? And just for the beginning, I want to ignore the one to the furthest on the left and talk about facility use model and new location model. Those are the two options that units in the Hetuck district who are affected by this should be considering. Facility use model, continue to meet at the church, sign a facility use agreement. That signature, though, is not just the unit, right? It's the council. It's actually a little bit bigger in scope than that. But you'll continue to meet there, but you'd have to be chartered to a different organization. New location model, you would charter to a different organization and move there, clean out the closet, take all the stuff, move the trailer, whatever the case may be. You would just have a totally new chartered organization. The diocese has instructed parishes to use the facility use model. So they want scouting there. They just want to change the way in which that partnership works. So those are the two models that we need to have our Hetuck folks looking at. The current model is not available. It may be available to other units in other dioceses. So one of the documents that was developed in conjunction with the USCCB was a new charter agreement for Catholic partners. It is different from the charter agreement that we're using other places. If a diocese were to determine they want to use that model, use that charter agreement, it would just be the same as it is now, just signing a different charter agreement than the one that's in place today. So we left that in here in case, really in hopes that some of those other dioceses, some of our units that are not currently affected by this, if you are to become affected, that would be open to you. There's also an approved facility use model form that was worked on between the National Council and the USCCB. We have a copy of that. We do not know yet if that is the facility use agreement that the Diocese of Youngstown wants to move forward with. They do have it. We are aware they're reviewing it. If they do not want to use that agreement and they want to use a different one, we will have to, no one should sign it. I need to get that copy sent to me. Hopefully we'll get it directly from the diocese. We have to have that reviewed and approved at the national level before anyone locally can sign it. So just another little layer of complexity here with that. So again, just in summary, if you are on here today, you are in the Hetuck district, you're in Stark County, your two options are facility use model, new location model. Some of this probably isn't brand new to you. We've pushed some information out already. I know that Dennis Vargo, who's our executive for that area, has talked with you, is working. We've even had one of our a set of units at a parish has actually already moved and completed the paperwork for a new chartered organization. So everybody's at different stages of this, but those are the two models that we're looking at. When we go back and talk about a timeline, again, the units that are rechartering now, units in the Hetuck district, that was already due, right? Our early due date, not going to be a penalty for you because of that. They expire at the end of this month, and there is a 60-day window that you have to complete those, right? At the 60-day mark on May the 1st, it's not done by April 30th. This is the recharter process. The unit will drop off of our system. Okay, drops out of the system. That is designed that way. It's been that way for as long as I've been in scouting. It's determined at the national level. I can't affect that locally. So we have at least that much time to complete this. We also, through the good work of our friend Bill Schweitzer, who's on this call and is involved at St. Mike's, and some other scouting friends, we have been really pushing, I shouldn't say pushing back, but we've been really trying to communicate with the diocese. And just today learned that the Monsignor and other leadership in the diocese have stated that they were unaware that different councils, different units rechartered at different times. They thought that everyone would have till the end of this year to complete this process. We have asked them to consider an extension so that maybe they would go ahead and approve the charters through the end of this year. And we're hopeful that they will. We don't know if that'll happen or when it will happen, but there has been some really good positive movement on that here recently. Again, as recent as today. So if that happens, we have more time, but it's not going to change the ultimate situation. Everybody that is a unit in the Diocese of Youngstown and Stark County Catholic unit is going to have to find a new charter partner. That's not going to change it. Well, it could, but it would be a very small likelihood.
Catholics call that a miracle, Nathan.
Yes, I understand. I didn't want to, I don't want to stray there, Bill, but thank you. Yes, it would be. It's a small chance. So what does that mean? It means that we've got some time. Okay. We don't have to be in a panic. We scheduled this meeting at this time so we could get resources developed for you, but also to allow those conversations to happen with the diocese. They did not communicate proactively with us. So we've been having to chase communication, and not to say that they've been receptive to that, but there's a lot of moving parts here. This was, the parishes received this information to not sign charters from a law firm engaged by the diocese. There's a lot of layers and to all of this, so we needed time to work through that. I think we're going to get probably a pretty positive answer, but should you stop some of the steps that we're going to go through? No, we still need to find a new charter partner. That's going to be the case regardless of the model that you select. So back on our models, you're going to pick 1, 2, or 3, depending what's available to you. Again, right now it's facility use model or current model, or new location model. For some of you down the road, it might be current model. Then you're going to communicate that selected option. Okay, so we'll probably already be aware of that with you as we're helping you through this, especially as Dennis is working with you. But we want to make sure that we know that as soon as you made a decision, and so that we can help you through that process effectively. And then if we go to the next slide, begin prospecting for a new chartered organization. That's definitely going to happen for our Stark County units, and we're going to give you some tools for that. We kind of already covered this, talked about the 4:30 deadline to complete that. The next slide is going to talk about some recommended chartered organizations to consider. So these are on the left-hand side, the other top current chartered organizations, top meaning by number of them that charter units. So you can see those outlined there. Other scouting friendly organizations that do charter units either with us or other parts of the country are there on the right-hand side. This slide deck is going to be available also on our resource website, so you don't have to try to rush to write all those down right now. As we did this with our Methodist partners, our Methodist units, we've seen several of these be the solution. Lions clubs, some Rotary clubs, Masons, VFWs, Lutheran Church, a Baptist church, which I don't think we have listed here. Let's see, AMVETS is one, Kiwanis is one. Those are all new charter partners, at least new for us here locally in those towns as a result of going through this process with the Methodists. Conversations for the most part have been very open, very positive. There is some trepidation here and there. We'll talk about some ways you can overcome that. But we also want to make sure that it's very clearly understood that we're here to help you with these meetings, okay? Whether that's Dennis or myself, Sarah on our staff, and many of you know, some of our commissioners, we will go with you, okay? The partnership is between the unit, the organization, and the council, and we want to help you with some of the tough questions that might be asked in those. We'll cover a couple of those pieces here before we conclude. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, then identify, prospect for, then approach, right? So schedule a meeting. This is what I just talked about. Let us know about that. We'll go with you, equip you with resources, and help you have the conversation. We already have developed a physical folder that you will receive. You can pick up, we can get it to you, that has a copy of all of the materials, including a guidebook that we're rolling out in conjunction with this meeting for you, with all of this information listed and other places to go for help. So we'll have a physical folder that you can use. You can take to those. You can equip those individuals with resources to consider this. Make sure that, again, that you communicate. We don't want you to go in unprepared. We don't want you to talk to a charter partner that wouldn't be an approved charter partner. That would have to be pretty off the wall, but there are some. So just make sure that we communicate and get the resources. Go ahead to the next one. So then you're going to complete paperwork. You can see, depending on the model, what paperwork is needed. We're going to share some of these, what these look like, what they mean here. You may have already seen those because we have them on that resource website for you already. Again, current model is not available today, so just ignore that, or at least not for our currently affected units. But there's several pieces of paperwork that we have to complete for those other models. Okay. So we'll talk about each of those as we share them with you on the screen. And then once that's finalized, needs to be submitted, and then wait. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a 24-hour cycle for a new charter partner to be submitted to the system before it's available for us to switch you to. And then once the switch is made, it's another 24-hour window before that will be reflected in that system so that you can recharter. So just know that there's a little bit of time once it all comes in. So I already mentioned that each unit will receive a guidebook, and we'll have that for you digitally. All these resources are digitally. You'll be able to get them right away. But we will have a physical copy for you. I think Sarah's talking about that in the chat a little bit, so that you can have that and be equipped with it. And again, we're going to go through some of these individual resources here on the screen in a moment. You can find them all there, buckeyecouncil.org/Catholic Church Transition. Okay, before Q&A though, I want to switch over, Sarah, if you could drive and take us to show a couple of these pieces. I'd like to start with the guidebook if we could. So while she's doing that, one of the questions that I think is maybe top of mind is, why is this happening? It's a complicated answer. The basic way to the most plain way to say it is that the Catholic Church, just like our Methodist partners, no longer desire to have the same responsibility for leadership that they've had. And you can substitute responsibility for liability. So the way chartered organizations work is, they own the unit, they approve of leaders, and they have responsibility for the actions of those leaders, right? And so because of some abuse allegations from the past, some of our partners have decided that they're uncomfortable with the potential future exposure to liability. So by not chartering, then they don't have that. You can keep meeting in the facility. That's a different type of an agreement, but they won't be involved in the selection of that leadership. So that's disappointing to us. We have a lot of history, particularly with our Catholic partners, but that's their choice. It's important to know, as we talk to new potential chartered organizations, that the type of exposure that exists for some of our partners today all predates 1978 and is not any type of exposure that current or future charter partners would face. What happened in 1978? Well, that's when the National Council purchased general liability insurance for everybody. And so from that point forward, any of us that are leaders, the chartered organizations, everybody who's involved in delivering the scouting program is protected from any liability claims, any civil suits that are filed, et cetera, as long as we're following the policies and procedures of scouting. This insurance policy is why our membership fees have gone up so much. It's a very expensive policy. It's going to get more expensive as a result of some of the things that have happened. So any liability that has come forward from these claims that's post 1978, there's no exposure to our charter partners, liability exposure for that. Just like if we partner with someone new, they don't have that same exposure as long as policies and procedures are being followed. So that's a general why. The Catholic Church has made it clear in their communication to parishes that they still value scouting, want scouting to be a part of their churches. They just want to do it in a different way. So that's a kind of a big question that was maybe going to come up. General answer to it. We can get into some more specifics in so much as we're able to when we get to the Q&A. So this is that transition guidebook. We'll just scroll through it relatively briefly, kind of an overview of some of the rhetoric that we've already shared with you, who to contact for help. Hopefully you already know who those folks are. The timeline we just talked about, some of these are going to look real familiar to the slides we just went through. Here's those instructions, same information that we just presented to you for your reference. Complete the paperwork, keep rolling down, and some frequently asked questions, which we're going to get into here in a moment. Then, here's a checklist to kind of help keep everything sorted and keep it all together. So direct links to all those resources are here, including the recording of this meeting. So we're going to have this go out. Will be posted on the site. Actually, Sarah, can you open that back up? The guidebook, please. We'll have this posted on the site here yet tonight. In fact, it might already be up there. And you'll be able to download that, but we're also going to have a hard copy for you in that folder that I mentioned. Can we go to that frequently asked questions? Let's just go ahead and hit on a few of those while we've got it open. So is there a fee to switch to a new organization? There's always a new charter fee. It's the same as the renewal charter fee. And because we're doing this presently at recharter time, then no. So there's no fee for changing the charter over. Or really, if that'll happen in the meantime, if we do that mid-year in some of these other places, there won't be a fee just to switch it to a new charter organization. Can a unit create a nonprofit corporation on their own for the purpose of chartering a unit? No, units are not legal entities, even if you're recognized as a 501c3. That's different but from being the type of legal entity that can charter a unit. It's not an approved type of charter by scouting. Even if I wanted to, we're hamstrung from being able to do that at a higher level. Moreover, it's just not the best idea. We partner with chartered organizations that are institutions, right? So we have over 100 years of history with some of the Catholic partners, parishes that are represented on this meeting tonight. If it wasn't with that institution that's going to outlast all of us, it wouldn't be as sustainable. When we create small groups, friends of scouting in a certain geography, it's only as good, it's only going to last as long as those people are going to be connected to it. Maybe there's another generation of great people that are connected to it, but because it doesn't have that structure of an institution that's going to drive forward and outlast, be a long-standing part of the community, it's not in the best long-term interest of scouting. We want to partner with entities that are like scouting that are going to be around for a long time. Membership renewal process the same? Yes. Just leave that there. What diocese are you in? We've got that listed here if you're unaware. And if you're in the process of moving to another charter partner, maybe you were already moving, okay? The same rules apply. Don't start the recharter until we finish that charter paperwork. So again, maybe a few questions that might come up here when we get to the Q&A. Just want to be proactive on those. So let's go into some of the documents that you're going to see if you haven't already looked at those on the transition website, and that will be in the folder. Okay. So if you're going to a new charter organization, you're going to want to be able to share with them the role of the chartered organization. So that's a document, second link down there, that outlines, how scouting works and what the charter organization's part in that. That's just good information for them, good talking points for that part of the meeting. You're also going to be able to provide them with some overviews of scouting, and a great one is the Strengthening Youth through Scouting booklet here. And again, we're not going to click through everything for you, just kind of giving you a sense, just some good material you can send to that group in advance, you can take with you to be able to, give them a sense of the impact that scouting makes. Let's go into some of the actual documents to get filled out. So you'll need a new unit application. Looks like this. Okay. Pretty straightforward. It's kind of just the who is the organization, but does have to be signed by their institutional head, by their executive officer. Who is that? Well, if it's a church, it's the pastor. Okay. It's not somebody the pastor assigns, right? That's the charter organization representative. The executive officer is defined by who the head of the organization is. It's not just a position, right? It's not someone they select. It already is selected. Sounds like if everybody could again check their mute, make sure you're on mute during this for the sake of our recording, that'd be great. Okay, so new unit application, they are going to need to select a chartered organization representative. So they're going to fill out something you're all familiar with, an adult application. So they'll need to fill that out, complete youth protection training. That's all going to have to be submitted with this changeover paperwork. So they'll need to do that at that time. The what if the charter organization representative is the same? Okay. What if, Steve is he's the guy for the church and he has the connect for the VFW. It's still Steve. We need a new application because Steve's got to be approved by that new institution, that new chartered organization to serve in that role. Okay. Even though he's still going to be your COR, it's a different approval that's required. Annual charter agreement. What we're pulling up now, this is the current charter agreement for everybody. It is different than maybe what you've seen. This is new in the last several months. It really spells out on page 3 the insurance, the liability coverages that exists. I'm not going to run through those, but you could see those on there. These are those types of questions that we want to be in the room with you to help have with the chartered organization. Back in the day, not too long ago, charter agreement was just a single one page. What we all agreed to, insurance was there, but it didn't have to be spelled out like this. And this is kind of the modern age that we're in. And so that's one of the changes that's on here. Want to make sure that we're using the right document when we go. Now, this is different than that new chartered organization agreement that was specifically developed for Catholic partners. That one is different yet from this and is not available on our website, okay? Because right now, we don't have any dioceses that have said they want to use that. And that's the only place that will be needed. So we're not going to release that to you and muddy the water. If anybody really wants to see it, I'm happy to share it to you. It's not a secret. It's just not necessary yet because we don't have any dioceses that have approved to charter and to charter using that new agreement. Okay, we're also going to need a release and assumption of the unit charter. Okay, so this is where the current chartered organization would sign to release the charter to then the bottom half is the assumption of the charter to the new charter. This is an important document here. This is the legal document that states that the assets of the unit, which are owned by the chartered organization, are being released to go to that new chartered organization and accepted. Okay, those assets include your unit number. They include what's in the trailer. They include what's in your bank account that's owned by the chartered organization. And if we don't get it released, then technically, if we got into some sort of difficulty, that original chartered organization has a claim to that, more than a claim. They have the right to that. Would that happen in this situation? Very unlikely, but we want to make sure that we avoid anything like that. So the release assumption is there. Another step you'll have to do is change the bank account. You're going to have to, move your checking account or really exit the checking account that may be associated with the EIN of the church and open a new one with the new chartered organization. Should there be some time there, some grace for that, but you're going to need to do that because, again, it's tied to your current chartered organization in almost every case. All right, so I think that's it on documents. We do not have the facility use agreement, which will also have to be completed if you are continuing to meet at the church. Why don't we have that? Because, again, I mentioned earlier, the diocese has not provided the one they would like to have used. We're hopeful that they will utilize the one that's already been worked out with the USCCB and the National Council, but we don't know that yet. Okay, so that's not here yet. That is an important piece to this process. Guys, let's go ahead and close this stuff out. So I'm sure I've forgotten a couple of pieces. Hopefully we'll catch those in questions. At this time, we would invite you to go ahead and turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, ask your questions so that we can work through those as a group to the very best of our ability. And we'll kick it off with James, who's very politely raising his hand.
Well, I know in Zoom, normally there's that hand raise and I didn't see it, so I'm going like this. How about that? Jim Cox, Scoutmaster of Troop 121 out of Mansfield, Ohio, our charter organization in St. Peter's Parish. I guess there's a lot of tremendous, fantastic work you all have done, and I see the work behind it. I guess my question is broader. The Methodist Church has gone through this. It appears Catholic Church is beginning a process. We'll see what happens. I saw, other options for charter organizations, Lutheran and so on. What's the council and BSA's opinion on other churches and other systemic organizations, not-for-profit organizations, taking a similar stance? That concerns me that, we do something this year, but we're going to be having the same conversation a year down the road.
Sure. Yeah, it's very concerning for us too. In fact, we just had a conversation at our council board meeting last night, and I very candidly disclosed my concerns about this exact same thing. So while we share your concerns, I'm not going to give you any kind of a satisfactory answer because there just isn't one, unfortunately, except to say that our council and our council leadership, and when I say that, I'm talking professional and volunteer combined, we believe that local scouting is strongest when it is partnered to a local organization, a local institution. Okay. There is an option that's not in the material. And that option is which is a relatively new thing, last couple of years, that the National Council has opened up, where units can charter with the council. And there are some councils who are doing that. Okay. We looked at that prior to the Methodist transition, and we brought together a team of people. At that time, many folks like you, Unit Key 3 members from our Methodist partners, as well as some of our commissioners and some other council involved folks. And we presented that to them, and they unanimously rejected that as an idea, which is why you don't see it in these materials, because we don't think it's a good move in the long-term interest of scouting. I just talked about assets of the unit. Okay. If the unit charters with the council owns your assets. Okay. I don't think that's a very good way for us to have our partnership and relationship. I don't think it's the reporting on that we would have to do, the minutia around that. Just the feeling of that is not one that I think is very great. So we don't want to do that. Moreover, in your unit, James, I don't know if you said you go by Jim. I apologize if you do, but in your unit, let's say you have a Mrs. Jones, and there's a question as to whether or not Mrs. Jones is fit for leadership because of something that's happened. Okay. Well, if you're chartered to us, then it's going to be people like Bernie, our council commissioner, people like me, maybe, who get to make a decision about whether or not Mrs. Jones should be involved. We'd have the ultimate say, right? I think that's a decision that people in your town are better positioned to make. I think that's a decision that your committee and the charter organization that you've grown up around and as a part of are better positioned to make those kind of decisions. So we've rejected that. Okay. I can go more into that. Some of us, like me, fear eventually we won't have an option. Okay. Maybe that's what we're going to have to do. We don't have to do it today. So we're looking to forestall that. Also, I know some other councils who are doing it, and I'm happy to let them experiment with it. And if it's going to be what we need to do, they'll maybe have some best practices for us if we get to that point. Thanks for the question. Mr. Schweitzer.
Thanks, Nathan. Nice job pulling that all together on short notice. Jim or James from Mansfield, are you all the Diocese of Columbus?
No, we're out of Toledo Diocese.
Toledo Diocese. Okay, I haven't heard what they're doing. I have heard rumor, I cannot confirm, that Cleveland and Columbus are using the national approved charter agreements, and the pastors are able to continue to charter units. So I don't know what Toledo's doing. If you could find out and let Nathan know, that would be a
Yeah,
help.
as soon as anybody hears, let us know. We have heard some rumor, but we don't have anything concrete. And I think it was I don't know who mentioned it. It's probably going to be, you're going to probably find out before we will, because it's probably going to be directly communicated to the parish and then to you. So don't assume that we know. If you when we found out about this, I got it. It was a picture of the letter and a text on a Saturday, and I was like, oh, okay, well, here we go.
Real quick, because I know Fred had his hand up. What have you heard from the Catholic Commission on Scouting, National Catholic? Where's their stance? Where are they in on this? Are they helping out or not? That's been a big question in our minds.
You want me to take that, Nathan?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, we did receive through Bob Granchi, who is the chairman of the Diocese of Youngstown Catholic Committee on Scouting, a white paper from the National Commission, Catholic Commission on the Committee on Scouting. A whole lot of alphabet soup going on here, and they have basically just summarized the situation with the USCCB and National. And it is very clear that the final decision in all cases resides solely with the local bishop. And Nathan pretty well described the options that are available, the three pragmatic options that will be available to Buckeye Council units. So I want to thank Dennis Fargo. He's been very proactive in trying to help all 11 units in Hetuck that are affected by this. So nice job, Dennis. Thank you. And we'll keep pushing ahead on that. I did have one comment, Nathan. I noticed in your slides a reference to Knights of Columbus as a possible chartering organization. We have attempted to do that in the past with Knights of Columbus, and they have resisted. And the explanation I received from the unit that operates out of St. Michael's Church is that in light of the problems with sexual abuse faced by the Catholic Church, they were simply not interested in it. I was told, I don't know, that they have instructions from whoever their boss is that don't charter units.
Yeah, that's a good note. And I actually caught it on the screen to make sure we took out of there. Sarah, if you can just make that note, because I had also recently heard that kind of in light of the similar to what Bill just shared, Knights of Columbus, who are certainly a Catholic entity in to themselves, very closely associated, had decided to stop chartering or were going to be deciding to stop chartering. So let's jump over to Fred, who had his hand up just a moment ago.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Nathan, for putting this on. And I'll grudgingly thank my classmate, Dennis, who I love dearly. He's been helping out greatly. But my question is for Bill, because you've been involved in this, and I've kind of done my own detective work, calling contacts, talking to people. And my impression of this, at least from the Youngstown Diocese, is that this decision was not driven from the top down. It was driven from the middle, essentially by a lawyer who, a law firm that analyzed liability and then advised whoever in the diocese. And I don't think the number two even knew that the rechartering was up. So I've talked to a lot of people. I've seen some of the email chains. Bill, do you think, my biggest concern is our unit goes back 100 years. And I've talked to Doug Sibla, his unit goes back 100 years. St. Michael's goes back 70 years. And we draw a lot of our kids from the Catholic Church, even though St. Joseph, where we are, don't have a school. I worry that eventually, if they're moving toward disaffiliation, that might, change and could, harm or end our units, and not allow us to serve kids in those in our areas. My question is there? When you told me that there's a slim to none chance that they will charter out of Youngstown and follow, I've heard, as you do have, that Cleveland and Columbus are following the model that was developed nationally. should we just go ahead then and get a chartering organization? They don't even have a facilities use agreement for us, because my understanding of the whole thing is they've rejected what the national organizations have come up with, and they want their own agreement that's even more ironclad to protect them. And we don't even have a use agreement. So kind of like if we go out and get a new chartering organization now, what are the odds that we're going to get a facility use agreement from them? So it might it be better to continue for a year? That's my dilemma. Do I go to a different chartering organization? Because I think Dennis has already lined one up for us.
Well, and I'll let Bill weigh in on a couple pieces there, but then that, just on that last part, if they're not going to sign the charter, then you can't wait a year, because we're on the clock for that right now, right? If they extend it, which is, and Bill can speak to this more directly, there was a conversation between the chair of the Catholic Committee for the Diocese of Youngstown and the Monsignor yesterday. That conversation they had was prompted by some of the great work that Bill, our friend Doug Cibula, perhaps Fred, conversations you've had, kind of got up to that top level, and there was a realization that there wasn't consideration made for the timing of units when they recharter. Frankly, I feel like they kind of forgot they have some units down in our neck of the woods. And at the Monsignor level, I'm made to understand that's being addressed. Hey, we got to look at this. We need to make sure we're not leaving anybody out in the cold, and they are considering an extension. Okay. And hopefully we'll know soon, but we have very little control, very little even influence, I think, at this point in that. We've got them to look at it. We're just kind of at the mercy of what decision they will make. I say personally, it's just me, Fred, that I think it's a very slim chance that they will change position and accept this charter agreement that was developed with the USCCB, because they've already engaged this law firm. They've already sent official, communication to the parishes. I think it's an awful lot to put back in the box and change tax as an organization of being the diocese to do that. Well, I'd love for them to. I just think that it may be a little unlikely. Bill, do you want to add some color to any of that?
I'll add some color, and Sarah, I'll try not to force you to use the bleep button while I do that.
We're recording, Bill.
I'm conscious of that, and you don't know how difficult this is for me. First of all, good report again, Nathan, for playing telephone. We're doing a pretty good job here of keeping the communication clear. I am on the Youngstown Catholic Committee on Scouting, and spoke with Bob Granchi, who chairs that committee, yesterday. He had a meeting with Monsignor Sifrin yesterday. They left that meeting with Fred. I'm going to stand up for the Monsignor a little bit, and I think my intelligence is consistent with yours. The G2 out there says that the diocese personnel had no idea we had units in Buckeye and Hetuck that are on a different schedule than anyone else. And the approach that Bob took in his meeting with Monsignor Sifrin is, do you really want to leave these kids hanging out to dry? And I didn't share with him that we had a 60-day grace period. I don't think it's to our benefit to share that in negotiations. Monsignor Sifrin, first of all, was apologetic, and I really believe it was a sin of omission, not one of commission. And he said he will be meeting with the lawyer this week and reviewing facility use agreement. I requested one 10 days ago. It hasn't showed up yet. I pinged it again a couple days ago, and Bruce Gordon, the business manager at St. Michael, said he would rattle the cage again to try and get that out. Nathan brings up an important point, that if they offer something, then that which has already been approved by USCCB and National BSA, we might as well go back to square one. So I'm going to keep heat on that. Also, it would be a small miracle. I agree with Nathan if we actually got the diocese to reverse its position and charter units. However, given the intelligence that we've gathered between the many of us who have had their chef's hat working in the kitchen on this soup, I personally intuit, I don't know, but my intuition tells me the bishop doesn't even know what's going on here. And I talked to Father King, who celebrated Boy Scout Sunday Mass at St. Joe's on Sunday. He was shocked that our pastors received orders from outside counsel to not charter. So I don't know that that door's not open, but I agree with Nathan that it's going to be hard to change the momentum. This thing's already rolling downhill. That doesn't restrict anybody from making their feelings known to their pastors and the bishop directly. And I know a number of people are looking at that. And I want to recognize Doug Sibla too for making direct contact with Monsignor Sifrin, which really, I think really got the ball rolling. I don't know that we would be as far as we are if Doug hadn't reached out to Monsignor Sifrin. And Bob Granchi shares with me that Doug's call had a significant impact on Monsignor. Now, Fred, you asked a bunch of other questions too.
Well-
I'm glad you didn't have me on the stand. So
No, I'll just follow up with that. I talked to Doug today and he did seem to think that it would help. And I just, in viewing the situation, I got that impression too, that they just made this decision. They really didn't, the bishop doesn't really know what's going on, and Monsignor may not know what's going on. He is an Eagle Scout, so we got that going for us. My personal feeling, given our longstanding relationship with our church, is that, and the Catholic Church, is that I would like to see them recharter, change positions. But what I heard at the beginning of the meeting kind of put me in a, do I want to fight that war? I don't mind fighting it. I don't mind making my position known. And maybe now's the time to do it quickly, because it's better to do it, better to let somebody at the top know they haven't been told everything right away.
yes.
So,
We can certainly talk to prospective chartered organizations, put a preliminary agreement in place and wait to process it. If that's a decision that your group thinks is prudent, that's what one of my strong indications to this group when I sent the first notification out was, don't panic, don't do anything, let's wait. We want to communicate to you that we're aware of this and know that we're going to do our best to not only support resources, but try to work the problem. That's, clearly what's been happening just in this conversation.
well, just to follow up with what Bill said, if we do want to stay with them and they're working on this facility use agreement, we don't even have it. And I'm afraid we're not going to have it in time. And then, I'd rather keep my foot in the door. I don't know if that makes sense with them, instead of say, well, we've got another charter organization and they don't do the facility use agreement, or it's something that has to be approved by council. And now we're out in limbo. We got a new chartering organization. We don't know where we're going to go. That pretty much disaffiliates us. If their lawyers have to draft something that they haven't drafted already and has to go to national and be reviewed by their lawyers, we're not going to get it done by, it won't be done by April 30th. And then where are we going to meet?
Well, I think that between the parish leadership and the good, intelligent, as Bill said, diocese leadership, I don't think anybody's going to be said, you can't come in. Even if the local parish has said, I can't sign it, and I know we're working through all this stuff, I think they're still going to open the door for you to meet. You guys know your parish leadership better than I do. But I think that will be the case. We certainly have another, a myriad of options open to us. And so I think it's prudent to prospect. I think it's prudent to have some conversation with those chartered organizations, maybe even a request Would you be willing to do this if we need to? I think that it's prudent for us to also let the Monsignor, who's now kind of on the mission, on the case, see where this leads the diocese. And I know Bill, at least, well, I'll just speak for Bill. He's going to be tenacious in his pursuit of some answers. And we're going to keep, you informed as to what we know.
He'll
So-
probably be much more diplomatic than me or many of us, so. It's a good thing.
I've never been accused of that, Fred.
Now your group may feel a little differently. Your group may feel like, hey, you know what? We'd rather just move on down the road. We'd rather just find a new place. And that's okay if that's what your group wants to do. I don't want anybody to feel like, and when we had this question early on, that youth aren't going to be able to continue, that youth aren't going to be able to advance, coming up on maybe an 18th birthday or something like that. No one's going to drop. We're going to ensure that stuff doesn't happen. But we do have to work the problem. We do have to communicate to make sure that that's the case. Not panic, kind of just slow down and logically work through it. So some good dialogue. Other questions? I know we've got a number of other people hanging out, maybe that have been sitting on a question. There's John. He's ready. Hot mic. Go ahead.
No, just a quick question, follow up to what, and this might have been covered in the beginning of the meeting. I apologize for missing that. So it's just a quick question. If the Diocese of Youngstown comes out with their own use agreement, does that have to be reviewed by clear up through national? Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? Oh, that's fun. Okay, thank you.
That's correct. And I would hope that it wouldn't be a terribly long turnaround, but we've been told back in the early part of the Methodist transition, because there's a lot of, and it's happening here, right? There was a lot of misunderstanding at different levels as to what was going on. And in that situation, there was one agreement that had been worked out that at each level, the Methodists were instructed from their own organization, this is the one. And we still had other ones that were coming forward, right? So they're prepared for this. We're having to do it. We haven't had to do it as much locally, but we're having to do it with other types of facility use agreements, okay, that aren't for places that kids are going to meet regularly. But if we're getting new facility use agreements that have not been previously reviewed, we're having to send those on up as well. And so it's a process that they're doing. Can I say that it'll be very quick? I can't, but I would think it would be. I don't think it's going to be a month. I think we're more at the mercy of at the attorneys employed by the diocese right now than we are at anything on our end.
Just, I'm going to throw something else out. Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
do you know why they won't accept the previously approved, was it US CCB and Boy Scout facilities use agreement? I mean, is there a good reason, or is it just we want to do our own thing?
John, I have actually directly asked that question, and it has not been answered. I have a theory, but it's just my theory, and opinions are like accountants and a-holes, right? Everybody's got one and they all stink.
Thank you.
I'm not, I'll speak on it. I'm not entirely sure everybody at the table's aware of those documents, to be honest with you.
That's a good point, Nate.
We were told that they were shared from the USCCB to all dioceses, right? But whose email inbox did they go to? Right.
And did the attorneys for the Diocese of Youngstown even see those documents? I mean, I've had conversations with that guy in the early stages of this whole thing, and he was already of the preconceived notion. The guy who sent out that letter to the attorney sent out the letter to all the dioceses. He was at that moment, he wanted to get rid of all scouting units, and without even, I mean, come on, guy. So I don't think there's any changing that man's mind.
And he gets paid to write agreements. He's on the clock.
Yeah.
No offense, Fred.
None taken.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I'll pander a little bit, stall a little bit while you think if anybody is trying to find their mute button. We're all in this together. Don't feel like you're just trying to solve it on your own. As you can see, there's a lot of people that are involved who care and want to make the best outcome possible for this. So, you know, we're trying to proactively give you the resources. We're here to react to your proactivity and call us, let us know how we can help. I think we've been pretty well wrapped arms around this for our HETUC folks, and Dennis has very quickly worked hard to talk with all of you, and he and I review that information quite a bit. For those of you that may still have stuck with us who aren't affected yet today, you know, you've got a little bit of breathing room, maybe a lot if some of these rumors we hear are true and they just sign a new charter agreement, great. But at least you've got some information to noodle on. Let us know how we can help. With that, one more call for questions.
I just one last comment, Nathan, and that is we all need to keep in mind this is for the boys and keeping continuity in the program, or now scouts and keeping continuity in the program. I'm the COR for a Cub Scout pack at St. Michael's, and spring is their big time of the year. You got Pinewood Derby, you got the spring camp out, you got the blue and gold banquet. We have got to keep them running through that time period. And we certainly want to get everybody to summer camp at all levels of scouting this year. So let's keep the boys in front.
Well said. I think we'll leave it on that note. Thanks everybody for coming on, and we'll get that guidebook and everything out to you. I think it's already on the website, actually.